Welcome to MystiChrono, where history is not just studied, it is uncovered, decoded, and brought back to life. Tonight, we travel to a world before the world we know. We search for evidence of civilizations older than our textbooks dare to mention, civilizations that lived, built, mapped, explored, and disappeared. This is the story of ancient maps, maps so old, so precise, and so mysterious that they challenge everything we believe about human history. Maps that show Antarctica without ice, maps that show coastlines that should not have been known for thousands of years. Maps that appear to come from lost cultures and forgotten ages. But the question is, how did ancient explorers map parts of the Earth long before modern civilization existed, and more importantly, who were they? Although Ptolemy lived and worked at the time of Rome's greatest influence, he was a Greek and essentially a product of that civilization, as was the Great Library at Alexandria. His works greatly influenced the development of geography, which he defined in map-making terms. Representation in picture of the whole known world, together with the phenomena contained therein. This had considerable influence in directing scholars toward the specifics of map construction, and away from the more abstract and philosophical aspects of geography. One fundamental error that had far-reaching effects was attributed to Ptolemy, an underestimation of the size of the Earth. He showed Europe and Asia as extending over half the globe, instead of the 130 degrees of their true extent. Similarly, the span of the Mediterranean ultimately was proved to be 20 degrees less than Ptolemy's estimate. So lasting was Ptolemy's influence that 13 centuries later Christopher Columbus underestimated the distances to Cathay and India, partly from a recapitulation of this basic error. A fundamental difference between the Greek and Roman philosophies was indicated by their maps. The Romans were less interested in mathematical geography and tended toward more practical needs for military campaigns and provincial administration. They reverted to the older concepts of a disc-shaped world for maps of great areas because they met their needs and were easier to read and understand. The Roman general Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa, prior to Ptolemy's time, constructed a map of the world based on surveys of the then extensive system of Roman military roads. References to many other Roman maps have been found, but very few actual specimens survived the Dark Ages. It is quite probable that the Peutinger Table, a parchment scroll showing the roads of the Roman world, was originally based on Agrippa's map and subjected to several revisions through medieval times. The tragic turn of world events during the first few centuries of the Christian era wrought havoc to the accumulated knowledge and progress of mankind. As with other fields of science and technology, progress in geography and cartography was abruptly curtailed. After Ptolemy's day, there even appears to have been a retrogression, as exemplified by the Roman trend away from the mathematical approach to mapping. Great accumulations of documents and maps were destroyed or lost, and the survival of a large part of Ptolemy's work was probably due to its great prestige and popularity. The only other major work on mapping to survive was Strabo's earlier treatise, albeit with some changes from recopying. Few of the maps and related works of the ancient world have come down to us in their original forms. The tendencies to revise and even recapitulate when copying manuscripts are readily understood. Doubtless the factual content was improved more often than not, but a residual confusion remains when the specimen at hand may be either a true copy of an ancient document or a medieval scholar's version of the subject matter. Our journey begins with one of the most controversial artifacts in human history, the Piri Reis Map, dated 1513. Drawn on gazelle skin, found in the archives of the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, Turkey. To most people, it is simply an old map of the world, but look closer, and you will find something impossible. Progress in cartography during the early Middle Ages was slight. The medieval mapmaker seems to have been dominated by the Church, reflecting in his work the ecclesiastical dogmas and interpretations of Scripture. In fact, during the 6th century, Constantine of Antioch created a Christian topography depicting the Earth as a flat disk. Thus the Roman map of the world, along with other concepts, continued as authoritative for many centuries. A contemporary Chinese map shows that country occupying most of the world, while the Roman Empire dominates most other maps produced during early Christian times. Later medieval mapmakers were clearly aware of the Earth's sphericity, but for the most part, Maps remain small and schematic, as exemplified by the T and O renderings, so named from the stylized T form of the major water bodies separating the continents and the O as the circumfluent ocean surrounding the world. The orientation with east at the top of the map was often used, as the word orientation suggests. The earliest navigators coasted from headland to headland. They did not require charts until adoption of the magnetic compass made it possible to proceed directly from one port to another. The earliest record of the magnetic compass in Europe, 1187, is followed within a century by the earliest record of a sea chart. This was shown to Louis IX, King of France, on down and on, sounding on this mine. Xalja Durstraunder Don. Sauder, his participation in the Eighth Crusade in 1270, the earliest surviving chart dates from within a few years of this event. Found in Pisa and known as the Carta Pisana, it is now in the Bibliothèque Nationale, Paris. Thought to have been made about 1275, it is hand-drawn on a sheepskin and depicts the entire Mediterranean Sea. Such charts, often known as portolans named for the portolano or pilot book, listing sailing courses, ports, and anchorages, were much in demand for the increasing trade and shipping. Genoa, Pisa, Venice, Majorca, and Barcelona, among others, cooperated in providing information garnered from their pilots and captains. From repeated revisions and new surveys by compass, the portolan charts eventually surpassed all preceding maps in accuracy and reliability. The first portolans were hand-drawn and very expensive. They were based entirely on magnetic directions and map projections that assumed a degree of longitude equal to a degree of latitude. The assumption did little harm in the Mediterranean, but caused serious distortions in maps of higher latitudes. Development of line engraving and the availability, in the 16th century, of large sheets of smooth-surfaced paper facilitated mass production of charts, which soon replaced the manuscript portolans. The map shows the coastline of South America. Accurately, it shows the curve of Brazil, with precision. It even shows the Falkland Islands, which Europeans supposedly didn't discover until almost 250 years later. But the most shocking detail, at the very bottom of the map, is a landmass. A massive continent, shaped like Antarctica. But, here's the problem. Antarctica was officially discovered in 1820, 307 years after this map was drawn, and even more impossible, the coastline of Antarctica on the Piri Reis Map is shown with no ice, a shape Antarctica has not had for at least 6,000 years, according to geological studies. So, what does that mean? The creator of this map either had access to knowledge far older than our recorded history, or inherited information from a civilization that existed long before the last ice age ended. Piri Reis himself even wrote on the map that he did not create the map from scratch. He compiled it from 20 older source maps, some of which he claimed were from ancient civilizations. He specifically mentioned one group. The maps were drawn in the time of Alexander the Great. But Alexander ruled over 2,300 years ago, and even in his time, no one had ever traveled to Antarctica. So, where did the original information come from? That is the question historians still cannot answer. To understand the true mystery of ancient maps, we must look back, far back, not 500 years, not 2,000 years, not even 10,000 years, but over 15,000 years into our past, into a world during the last ice age. During this time, massive parts of the Earth were covered in frozen glaciers, sea levels were 400 feet lower, entire coastlines, which today are underwater, were once habitable land. Cities, villages, harbors, civilizations, all of these could have existed along ancient coastlines, now buried deep beneath the ocean. So, when we look at the Piri Reis Map and others like it, we begin to ask, did someone map the world back then, before the ice melted? And if so, who were they? Were they a lost maritime civilization, survivors of an ancient cataclysm, explorers whose knowledge was passed through Egyptian priests, or perhaps a global network of ancient seafarers? The deeper we search, the stranger the evidence becomes. The Piri Reis Map is not alone, there are others. The Orontius Phineas Map from 1531. This map also shows Antarctica, and, yeah, again, without ice. Rivers, mountain ranges, valleys, features that were, honestly, confirmed only in the 20th century using advanced radar scanning beneath the ice. How could a map from 1531 show such detail? Historians claim it was coincidence, it was guesswork, it was misinterpretation. But when coincidences repeat themselves across multiple ancient maps, something else is happening. Many scholars believe that the knowledge behind these maps was not originally European. Instead, it came from older cultures. The Egyptians, who claimed knowledge from gods, and the Zeptepi, the first time, the Phoenicians, masters of sea navigation, the Minoans, with advanced shipbuilding ability, the ancient Sumerians, the first recorded civilization on Earth. But even these civilizations appear suddenly, with no clear evolutionary buildup, as if the knowledge was inherited, not developed, like the flame of a fire that was carried forward from an older world. Nearly every ancient culture on Earth shares one story, a great flood. In the Bible, the Quran, ancient Sumerian tablets like the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Hindu Vedas, Native American oral traditions, and Greek mythology with Atlantis, the story of a great flood echoes across all these cultures. Different cultures, different languages, different continents, yet the same story, a global flood. That wiped out an advanced world before ours, modern geology confirms. Around 12,800 years ago, a massive climate event occurred called the Younger Dryas Impact Hypothesis, possibly caused by a comet or meteor strike. Sea levels rose, coastlines sank, civilizations could have vanished. And their maps, maybe a few survived, copied and recopied through millennia, until eventually reaching people like Piri Reis. We have only begun to uncover the mystery. In the next part, we will explore Atlantis, the Library of Alexandria, and the civilizations that could have created these maps. We will examine forbidden evidence hidden in museums, temples, seabeds, and ancient stone ruins. The story is just beginning.